Hi guys, I'm Jim and this is Jim's Fix-It Shop, and as you hopefully have been watching, we're putting this snapper back together that belongs to my boss. But I had a email from two different viewers on their tractor. I think it was Larry that was talking about his. He says, I bought this used tractor, I used it, I put it in my garage for a couple of weeks. When I went to get it out, it wouldn't shift. It wouldn't do anything. Well, from corresponding with him back and forth, we worked it down to it was the shifter was froze up because it was never greased. There is a grease fitting on the back side of this thing. Let me grab this loose one and I can show it to you a little closer. Okay, this is it. You all recognize this. This is where your shifter goes. This is the inside. You do have a grease fitting here. This is a very powerful spring. I don't know why they thought they needed something that stiff. But this is your shift adjusting latch assembly. Now there's a mouthful for you. I'm going to show you how to compress this spring to get the assembly apart so you can, for one, clean it and grease it so it will move again. And two, the other gentleman, his shifter broke. A lot of them do that because from shifting into these detents with all the spring tension, wears right through them bars. I've had a lot of them where we took them out before they actually broke, and we filled all that area in with weld to repair it, and then just kind of belt sanded it down so it was smooth again. But that happens quite often. It's typical. You just have to watch for that. So let me put the camera down here, and I'm going to show you two ways to get this spring off. The one way, we are going to be using a bar, just a bar of steel. This happens to be, I think, 1 1/4 inches by 3/8 by 6-7 inches long. It has a 3/8 hole drilled through it. And the hole is to clear the grease fitting. You don't want to crush the grease fitting while you're trying to compress this spring. The other way, and if you know me, you should have known this is how I'm going to do it. I went out and bought a valve spring compressor. And this is to take your valve springs off your valves in your cars. And of course, it's a really cool, really cool tool. It's adjustable and it's cammed. It's made offset. You'll notice these fingers that grab the springs are not the same height. That's because the coil in the spring is spiraled and you're going to grab it on each side of the spring. So one coil is going to be higher than the other. That's why they have that offset. Pretty clever, huh? This is very well made. Very thick, stiff steel, and you know why it's well made? Look real close right there. Made in the USA. Now, they did have Chinese ones, and they were cheaper, but I don't buy Chinese crap. This was like 40 bucks. The Chinese one was a little less than 30. I'd pay 60 to get this one before I'd pay 30 for the Chinese one. That's just the way I am. So let's set this down. I'll show you how this works, and I'll show you how to use that bar to do the same thing. So let's see what happens. Okay, here we are. Here's this big spring. We're gonna try to grab it with this. It's kind of a handful to get it on there. sometimes. And that's all it takes. I need a pair of needle nose. I'll be right back. Alright, let's see if we can get this cotter key out of here. That's what holds the pin in. Well, that one's pretty bent up and destroyed. Guess I'll put a new one in when I put that back together. Now if we can pop this pin out of here. It's not unusual to have a lot of wear on this thing because of that extreme spring pressure that you have on this shifter. This pin looks like it's in pretty bad shape. Now if you wiggle this thing just right, you can get it out of here. I just don't remember where it's got to go through at. Sometimes you have to take the handles off, and other times there is a spot where that'll go through. But on this one, it don't look like it's going to come out. So fortunately, I don't have to take that off. Now I want to release this spring pressure. Let's see what these thrust washers look like. This one looks in really good shape. The thrust washer is not worn through. Usually what will happen, let me grab this old one. The edges of this shifter, these corners right here on this U-shaped piece of steel, rub on this surface. And if you can see this, it's gouged right into the steel from shifting back and forth. Now that was the better of the two that I had. So I took the one I used to the shop and I welded that in to fill it in, ground it smooth, and it's flat again just like this one is. Get a rag so I can wipe some of this old grease off. Now let's take the spring off and see if this thing will come out of here. I'm gonna have to. Oh, this one's got a nylon bushing on it. Mine doesn't have this. This is something different. The newer machines have a lot of different parts than the old ones do. And unless you tear these things apart, you just don't know. Fortunately, seeing I've already ordered my parts, this is in perfect shape and there's nothing wrong with it. And there's nothing wrong with this steel thrust washer. They have this steel washer on to protect this nylon. That handle rubbing on this nylon would cut right through that in a matter of days. And then it would start cutting into this case. Yeah, there is nothing wrong with this. But I'm gonna have to get a wrench. Well, no, it did come out, by golly. We'll wipe off the spring. And this is a shaft that slides in there, and they have another nylon bushing on the other side. Wow, this is really nice. Mine is not like this. That will help it turn better, longer, when people don't grease things. Yeah, talking to Mr. Tim. Oh, that would be my boss. Another steel thrust washer to protect the nylon bushing that they have in there. And this shaft is relatively, it has no rust on it at all. So that is how you get them apart. Now, let's get this back together. It's going to be a little more difficult. It would help if I had two people. I'm going to put the steel thrust washer back on. We're going to put on the nylon bushing. Might as well wipe the dirt off of here too. There still is some grease in here from probably when it was manufactured. Now this grease fitting, you put grease in the end of it and it comes out this hole right here. And I'm surprised that they have that hole covered up with this bushing. So apparently it squeezes between the shaft and the bushing, and that's how it gets to the inside. So we'll throw the spring back on here, put that back in there. We'll put the outside on when I get the spring compressed. Now this is where it's going to take a couple of people, and I'm hoping I can do this by myself. You're going to need 2 clamps and this bar. Now when you put this on here to take it apart, if you use these clamps, don't have the screw all the way open like this. And then slide this up and compress the spring. You have to remember the spring is already compressed because it's assembled. So if you do that, when you try to release this, you're only going to go as far as what it was set when you pinched it in the first place. So when you try to get this off, you're going to run out of thread and it's going to be stuck on there. So what you're going to want to do is screw your screw at least halfway out, so you got enough extra travel to release the spring once you get it apart. Now the hard part, getting this all on here with just 2 hands. That might be a little tricky. Uh-huh. Now you're just gonna try and pinch these things together evenly. And I almost ran out of travel on this. Now to try and line that pin back up, I'm going to have to turn this, and my clamps are in the way. I got to grab a tool. Okay, now we're going to slide that nylon bushing back in there. Going to put the steel thrust washer on. Now some of the old ones, all they have is a couple of these steel thrust washers, no nylon sleeves on either side. And now we can get this shifter back up here. Hopefully I got it compressed enough to get this pin in. The pin does have some rust on it. That's why it doesn't want to go in very good. And my clamps are in the way to try to get it down in there. I'm gonna have to grab me a larger pair of pliers. Don't you love just being prepared? If we can shove that down through all the way. There we go. I guess you just gotta have the right tool. And we'll stick the cotter key in. And we can release these. Now that was a hassle, let me tell you. I'm strongly leaning towards the spring compressor. I know it's a big expense. Most of you guys are just going to use this thing once. See if you got a mechanic that has one, you can just borrow it for a night. Personally, I'm going to be using this a lot, so I just bit the bullet and bought it. Besides, like I've said, it doesn't take a whole lot of convincing or arm twisting to get me to buy a new tool. So that's it. That's how you take this thing apart so you can clean it, get all the rust off it so it shifts good. Or if your shifter wears and it broke on you, that's how you get it out. Now to get this shifter handle out of here, you got to take this handle off and then it'll slide right out. That's it. I hope this helped you somehow. It was a little confusing, but the next one hopefully on this machine is going to be getting the differential put together. If you've been watching right along, Parts Tree did send me a new replacement bushing, but as far as I'm concerned, it's just as oversized as the first one was. So when we get it done, I'll show you what I did to the bushing. The old one actually we used to repair it and make it work probably a lot better than these. So stay tuned for that. That'll be the next video on this. I do have some other videos coming up before that to answer some emails. So if you have any questions or comments, put them in the description box below. And don't forget to subscribe and hit that thumbs up button if you like these goofy things. If you have any questions and you'd like to see something done in a video, let me know. I'd be more than happy to make them. Besides, I'm running out of ideas here, guys, so shoot me some. And I guess until next time, work safe, have fun, and let's cut some grass. Or actually, I have leaves coming down already. So we'll talk to you soon.